We need to stop spreading misinformation about our bodies, like your period stops when you're in water. When we were living in Singapore and my youngest was in fourth grade, all the grade fours were invited to a mother-daughter tea with the school nurses to talk about periods. Ooh, exciting. It's funny because some of the dads got offended that they weren't invited, and so they had to change it to a parent-daughter tea, which I understand, since in this day and age, we have modern families. Not everybody has a mother. But it's just weird that dads get offended. We had one dad. I assume he was the offended one sitting in the tea. His daughter huddled close to her mother, clearly not a fan of his presence. Maybe this is not the time to show parental support, my dude. They could consider a tea for dads and sons. I'm sure they have topics to discuss versus the need to take over our safe space talking about our periods, or just have one big happy family tea where we can share topics that involve everyone. Show of hands with those with erectile dysfunction and those who are missing the match to all of their socks. Anyway, at the top of the tea, we were told that we were not to be discussing tampons. We were only allowed to talk about pads or period underwear. This was because of the varying religions in Singapore who don't allow their women to use tampons. I'm sorry, but who's policing this? Really, we should educate all period options and then allow individuals to make up their own minds for their own bodies. As the tea carried on, I realized that these misinformed nurses should limit themselves to splinter removal and Band-Aid applications. They had a cheesy cartoon video to watch about our changing bodies because apparently females are cartoon characters. Also, all the voiceovers were male. Yes, I complained. When the nurses were apparently spitting facts, one said that when you're in the water, your period stops. The moms and daughters at our table just kind of stared at each other in shock and disbelief. We're all muttering, like, what the actual fuck? I shifted to lift up my hand to speak, and my daughter grabbed my hand. Mommy, please don't say anything. I know it's not true. Here's the thing. Your period doesn't stop in water. Depending on your flow, you may feel like it does. It doesn't. If I was having my period and with no tampon got into shark-infested waters, I'd be torn apart in seconds. Also, if it was true, why are they making period bathing suits? I had asked my gynecologist just to make sure I was not the idiot in this scenario, and she laughed hysterically, saying that this was 100% not true. And who is teaching this? Me, the American School Elementary nurses. Your flow might be so light that it gives the illusion that it's in a holding pattern while you're in water, but the minute you stand, expect that water dripping down your legs to be tinted red. Or if your flow is like a flamethrower like mine, if you don't plug her up in water, you'll leave a trail behind you. WebMD also states, you may have heard that your period stops when you're in the water because of the water pressure. That's not true. The water pressure may slow the flow, but your period will still continue. That's why you should use a tampon or menstrual cup when you're going swimming. But WebMD does disagree with my shark attack theory. More than 80% of recorded shark attacks happen to men. Survival of the fittest. Am I right? Welcome to the Fuck You 50s, the podcast for women who refuse to tolerate the bullshit anymore. This is real talk, real stories, and a long overdue reality check. I'm your host, Andrea Claire, and this podcast is the filter-free voice you've been waiting for, with a dose of F-bombs. The Fuck You 50s. Unfiltered, unapologetic, and undeniably needed. My guest today is Frances Largeman-Roth, who is a registered dietitian nutritionist, a New York Times bestselling author, and a U.S. nationally recognized health expert who has worked in media for over 20 years. The former food and nutrition director of Health magazine left her cushy media position to build her own brand. Frances gets candid during our chat about her desire to have a fourth child, sharing her inspirational journey of becoming a mother at 50 through IVF and a donor egg. Her story helps other women realize that the option of motherhood does not necessarily close after their 40s. Frances is also a freelance writer and a recipe developer for numerous publications, including Today.com, Parents, Parade, and Mind, Body, Green. She has appeared on numerous TV shows, including The Today Show, Rachel Ray, Good Morning America, and CNN. Frances contributes expert quotes to national publications and also helps healthy food brands share their message. Frances is a member of the James Beard Foundation and the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. She received her undergraduate degree at Cornell University and completed her dietetic internship at Columbia. Find her latest book, Everyday Snack Tray, on Amazon, and please check the show notes for her social media links. Frances, Welcome to the Fuck You 50s.
As you can probably hear, I'm a little under the weather in terms of my voice. So
I'm just getting over something too. So,
oh dear. Oh dear. Look at us.
right?
Look at us.
Anyway, welcome. Thank you for taking some time. I'm
My
excited to speak with
pleasure.
you. The breadth of the of your experience is massive. So, and for the
Oh,
first
thank you.
time ever, I posted that I was having an RDN on if anybody had any questions. So I actually have
Oh,
questions. So I figure
exciting.
maybe I'll do those at the end.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, some really great questions. So to start off with, which I find interesting, is so you're a registered dietitian nutritionist, and
Yes.
I have only ever heard of them being kind of like a dietitian or nutritionist. I've never heard it combined before. So is that an American thing? Is that like a new thing?
It's new-ish. I don't know what year the Academy changed it. It used to be just registered dietitian. And I think what happened was there were and continue to be people out there who call themselves nutritionists. So
Right.
there wasn't, there wasn't anything legal that was preventing people from calling themselves that. They could have, worked in a Whole Foods store and called themselves a nutritionist, or they could have been somebody who really, had a lot of knowledge, like maybe somebody with a nutrition PhD, but they
Right.
still weren't a registered dietitian. But they could also call themselves a nutritionist. So I think the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics took on that nutrition part at the end, and it's really up to the individual to either just use RD or use RDN, which they
Right.
feel helps to encompass things,
Yeah.
better.
For sure. And I would think that as a registered dietitian, like I feel like nutritionist kind of goes in with it, but obviously dietitian is a higher level of education, right? Just
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Um, I am on a podcast in here, guys, so please don't come in. I also have I have 4 kids and one is sick today, so
Oh,
she's at home and like I said, it's a Monday.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's life happens, right? So, yeah. How old are your kids? Your youngest is 10 months old, right?
She is now 11 months old, but
Okay.
the other ones are 16, 14, 11. And
Wow.
then Romy will be a year on December 4th.
Oh, so exciting. I have 3 kids, so my eldest is 31. So I have 31, 28, and 17.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so you had a gap in there too.
I did have a gap. Yeah, second marriage. We moved to Singapore in
Wow.
2007, and basically after we moved shortly after we moved, we found out we were having a baby. So
That must have been exciting.
yeah, it was. We were there for 15 years. Have you traveled out to Asia at all, or?
No,
Yeah.
definitely on the bucket list.
Well, your kids would enjoy it too. And the food, since that's your
Oh, incredible.
so
Someday.
someday,
Mhm.
yeah, for sure. I've have like I feel I've had a few kind of very like specific experts on my podcast before, and I almost feel like I need to kind of pull out the questions because I mean we definitely want to cover like your books, your award-winning books, and uh just your experience. I mean, so many things. I was watching your reel today on YouTube.
The
Yeah, yeah,
promo
yeah.
reel. Mhm.
Sorry, promo. I'm also because I'm a hair and makeup artist
Yeah.
by trade, right? So it's like I like the portfolio reels. But yeah. We have one thing in common too. Like I had worked with Kathy Lee Gifford a gazillion years ago. She was in
Oh,
town
wow.
doing a I guess it was like a press tour or something, but honestly it was like before moving to Singapore, so like early 2000s, and I just touched her up for camera. So she was like, "How's my makeup? I don't know your lighting here." It's like we have the same lighting.
Yeah, she's funny. She's very funny.
So you
Mhm.
came from a magazine background. So when you were with the magazine, were you also an RDN at that time as well, or did you kind of branch off from there? Or tell me a bit about that.
Yes. So when I finally figured out that I wanted to become a dietitian, prior to that, I wanted to be a veterinarian my whole childhood. But I made the switch, and I remember calling a Cornell alum and asking her, I think she was at Working Woman magazine.
Okay.
And I said, hey, listen, I would love your advice. I really want to write. I would love to work at a magazine, but I'm also very interested in nutrition and I'm considering becoming a registered dietitian. If you had two pitches from two people and they had equally good clips, that's what we called them at the time, writing clips. But one was an RD and one was not, who would you hire? And she said, well, I would hire the RD. And I said, okay. And that makes the decision for me. So that was always kind of the path that I wanted to go down. And, the first job that I had out of my dietetic internship was at a clinic in San Francisco. It was a very unique experience because our clientele were almost 100% people living with HIV or AIDS.
Okay.
And so it was also incredible because we were a wellness center. We had two MDs, we had a psychiatrist, we had a Watsu therapist, an acupuncturist, and then me. So we really were treating our patients, 360 degrees.
And then you were there for how long before you got into the magazine industry?
So I was there for actually less than a year. And then the person I was dating at the time said, hey, the Discovery Channel is actually launching a whole channel about health. You should pitch yourself to them. And I was like, really? And so I actually pitched them the little handouts that I had been making for my patients.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the clientele, I'd been making them kind of funny, kind of fun. Like you want
Yeah.
to learn about the basics of how to choose a nutrition bar. Well, here's what you're looking for,
Yeah.
guys. And, but I would add some comedy into them. And so I used those as my writing clips because I didn't really have writing clips. And incredibly, the Discovery Channel hired me to be a writer for them on this new channel. And I loved it.
And when you throw in like humor and stuff too, it just makes it more like it shows your voice, right? Like it's not just like a dry kind of written. I guess you've worked for so
Yeah,
long.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I didn't know about having a voice
Yeah.
as a writer, but yeah. So that was such a cool job. But then the internet bubble burst and I lost that job and I did go and work. I worked at another .com in DC, but then my dream job opened up as the food and nutrition director for Health Magazine. That was in Birmingham, Alabama. So I had to move to the South, which was a real, fish out of water situation for me. But I was there for 4 years and, it was a great learning experience. And then I said, you know what? I said this to the editor in chief. I said, I got to move to New York. I'm
Mhm.
starting to do all this media. Um, can I just move to the New York office? And she said, sure, we're not going to pay you any more,
Yeah.
but you can move.
Yeah.
And so that sort of was for me the really big sort of, okay, now you're really in the magazine world. And that was amazing. And I got to run all these photo shoots and you work with a bunch of chefs. And, it was just an incredible experience.
Did you have a lot of say kind of in the content that you were creating for the magazine at that time too? Or was it kind of more handed down to you from your editor in chief?
You are pitching all the time. You are
Okay.
pitching your editor in chief and she or he, 50% of the time at least will say, no, hate it, back to the drawing board,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? But you are always the one, for your section generating the ideas and then also reaching out to your freelancers to ask them for ideas as well.
And I guess you get PR pitches as well too, right? So that kind of helps kind of give you some ideas and go from
Yeah,
there
it
too.
helps, obviously if you're pitching something, then you have an agenda, but it does inform you, what are the trends? And
Yeah.
that's still how I operate. I always tell people when they say, oh, aren't PR people so annoying? And I'm like, I wouldn't know what was going on in the world
Yeah.
if I didn't have all these publicists pitching me.
Yeah.
And, even if you never write about that particular product, you understand, oh, wow, all of this stuff about protein is bubbling up, or all of this stuff about beef tallow is bubbling up. I better pay attention to that.
Absolutely. You get all the, like you said, like all the trends. Was there any trends that with your background being the dietitian, like, did you have anything that you felt compelled that you had to write about because it was a trend, but that you were just like, I just don't agree with this? Or if you didn't agree with it, it wouldn't go in?
Let's just say that I had to edit a column from a reality TV star. Not going to mention who it was, but her advice that she shared in that article was terrible.
Oh,
Terrible. I mean, just diet culture, just, like, get a plate of food, only eat half of it. Um, and I was repulsed by the whole thing and really had a hard time. They obviously saw the benefit of having somebody from this up and coming show in the magazine,
yeah.
and I get that. But for me as a dietitian and somebody who has always followed science, that was a real issue for me to be including advice that I did not agree with.
Well, and that kind of like leads into like the influencer culture too, right? Which kind of, I feel kind of came from reality TV and just kind of built that up.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody has an opinion. And then there's so much information out there. And it's kind of like what do you believe? And yeah, I'm kind of with you on the science. Like I've had some people that have pitched themselves as guests for my podcast, which I really appreciate. Like I love the fact that people are reaching out, really appreciate it. But then there's some things where it's just like I can't filter through, and I'm just like, oh, if it's questionable in any way, I just feel like I can't have somebody on my podcast that fits that kind of messaging, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate that because not every host vets people in the same way, and they want to have those people coming on with the crazy ideas because, let's face it, sometimes that gets the eyeballs.
Yeah. The clickbait for sure. Absolutely. I love your everyday snack tray. It's so great. It's so
Oh,
fun. And
thank
I feel
you.
it suits like every age. Like obviously it's very family friendly, but I feel like if you're having like a bunch of girlfriends over or like, whatever. Do you have any advice for, because of course my podcast, The Fuck You 50s, is about women in midlife. And a lot of times we're having issues with metabolism and just kind of like what to eat, and snacking has become such a taboo kind of subject. So and I feel like your everyday snack trays are kind of great for that, but do you have any specific advice for women that are looking for good snacks?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we're all snacking. I read a statistic the other day. It's not stopping. We're not going to ever go back to just the 3 meals and sitting down for every meal. It's just not happening. Um, our lifestyle is completely different than in the 1950s. And, we're also trying to fit in more. So you don't have to feel bad about snacking. It is a great way to keep your energy level up. But obviously, you want to snack smart and you also want to be getting in key nutrients into your snacks. You don't want to just, you know, eat without thinking, right?
Mm,
So you want to be mindful. You want to have things on hand where you can combine a protein with a carbohydrate and a fiber because that's going to keep you full longer. So you can absolutely do that on a snack tray. You can have your whole grain wasa crackers and then you can have your nut butter or avocado and maybe some sliced cucumbers and cherry tomatoes. These are all things. I love vegetables that you don't have to really do anything to, like those
yeah.
cherry tomatoes. Just give them a rinse, slice up your cucumbers really, really quick. It is important to snack because if you are working out in the morning and you just had a small breakfast, you are going to need to eat something to actually see the results of that workout. You're going to need to eat something afterwards, preferably within a 30-minute window. And it's when we skimp on fueling ourselves that we actually overeat later on because by then we're famished and we're literally just grabbing whatever's around,
Yeah.
whatever's not locked down.
There's this concept too of like, and I feel like a lot of models that I've worked with have done this where they have like a bunch of mini meals or like mini snacks in the day versus having like big meals. Do you have any viewpoints on that? Like, is 3 meals the better thing to do? Or the little snacks, is that okay as well?
I'm a 3 meal and 2 snack kind of person, one in between breakfast and lunch, and then another one in the late afternoon. Absolutely. And then, hey, I'm also, even though I'm almost 52, I'm also a breastfeeding mom. So I might also have another one before bed that is, I've written about this for Real Simple, always including a fruit. So even if it's like pumpkin pie plus half an apple or a yogurt and half a cup of blueberries, because none of us are getting enough produce.
Yeah.
And so for me, that is one time of the day that I know that I'm going to get that fruit in. It's in my evening snack if I'm going to have an evening snack. So, you can break up your calories really in whatever way suits your lifestyle and your goals. I still believe in the family meal. And I think that if you have children, you should sit down with them at the table because there's so many benefits that provides, just the sitting down together. So,
Mm.
let's not get rid of the family dinner,
Yeah.
but definitely use snacks to support your overall energy and getting in those nutrients you need. Like if you're 50 plus, you need that calcium.
Yeah, that's true. I just had my vitamin D test and my vitamin D is low. So, but I always like it's so funny too.
Mm,
Like I, for some reason, always have low vitamin D, even when we lived in Singapore. I don't know if it's a redhead thing because I've been
really?
told maybe it's red hair, but even like my doctor in Singapore was like,
Huh.
"How do you have low vitamin D? You're like in a sunny country." So, but I guess too, it's like an age related to thing too, right?
Right. Absolutely. It is. And yeah, as we get older, definitely once we're, 60 plus, the absorption for certain nutrients really goes down. But I would say, starting at, even if you were someone who never paid attention to nutrition before, at 40, it's time to wake up. It's time to understand what you're eating and how it affects the way you feel, what nutrients you might not be getting in your diet. Okay, how can we correct that either through the food that you're eating or through supplements or both?
So it's interesting too you mentioned supplements because I feel like there's such a discussion about supplements now about what are good and what are not, and I feel like some people think they're a waste of time. Obviously they're not because doctors do recommend supplements, but are there ones that people should reach for? And what about brands? Because you go into the pharmacies and they have all these brands everywhere, and you kind of don't know. Like you see $4 multivitamins, you see $30 multivitamins. Like, how do you know which ones are the ones to get?
Oh, I mean, great question. Look, you don't need to be the person who's carrying a tote bag with 30 different supplements around. I think that is excessive and that honestly takes away from the food, and dietitians, pretty much all of us will tell you food first. Okay. So what does your diet look like? Oh, well, you're always on the go. You're not getting enough fruits and vegetables. Um, Maybe you are low in iron or in your case, Andrea, that you are low in vitamin D. So then how can we correct for these things without having it be a part-time job to take your supplements, So start with the high quality multivitamin. And now the companies are getting smarter and smarter. It's not just women's, men's, it's different stages
Yeah.
for women. In fact, there's one brand out there. I haven't taken theirs, so I don't really want to, speak to it, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
found it so interesting because they had, um, they focus a lot on reproduction. So it was like, not just prenatal, but if you are going through an IVF cycle, they had a specific multivitamin for that and all these different stages in between. But if you're a woman 40 plus, you should be looking for a different multivitamin than the one that your teenage daughter takes.
Fair.
And I have actually worked with a company specifically designing a multivitamin for women in the college years. It's called Body of Work. So check that out if you are a woman of that age. So that's kind of your baseline. That is to be sort of filling in those holes that you know you're not getting. Now, you might need to take additional vitamin D because a multivitamin won't necessarily, it could still be a great multivitamin. It may not have enough vitamin D in it. It might only have 500 milligrams in it, not, 1,000. The other thing to look for is third-party certification, and there are different companies who do this. NSF is one of them. So you know that it's been tested and that it actually has, number one, no toxins in it
Yeah.
because there is contamination out there, whether that's from the ingredient level or from the production level. And then also, it's also a certifying that the supplement has what it says it has. Is it really delivering 500 milligrams of magnesium per gummy or not? So, that's a way to sort of sift through and make sure that you're not getting a junky supplement.
That's good to know. And also too, I wonder, there's so much talk about microplastics now too. And so is there concern about taking vitamins that are in plastic containers? Like, should we be looking for vitamins or supplements that are in glass?
Well, there are a lot of brands for various things, not just supplements, but all kinds of things moving to glass. And I would say that's great if you can afford it. Generally, using glass is going to make a product, at least 20 to 30% more expensive. It's also, I think, great for the environment too, to be using glass. It's so easy to recycle glass. Um, but I haven't seen any studies showing that there's any connection between, especially if you're using a product within the appropriate, use by date.
Right.
I haven't seen any connections between microplastics and, a supplement that is in a plastic bottle like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And like I guess too, anyway, like you're saying, you look for the expiry date, and then there's some plastics that they say, like even takeaway containers from restaurants too. They say like it's a kind of one-time use, or there's some
Yeah,
I've
you
noticed
shouldn't
some.
reuse those.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What do you think are sustainable dietary changes that we should make when we're in our midlife, aside from cutting down the chocolate?
Excellent, excellent question. Yeah, don't get rid of the chocolate though, because chocolate does, especially dark chocolate, has a lot of great minerals in it.
I love having permission to have chocolate. Thank you.
Yes, eat your chocolate. I have chocolate almost every day. I sometimes really crave it. And I think there is certainly something to, if you're really craving something, probably having a carrot stick is never going to fulfill that craving. So enjoy your chocolate and move on and
Yeah,
don't feel guilty about it. But certainly as we go into midlife, fiber, huge, protein, huge, and then getting the fruits and veggies in there, because the only thing that we know actually helps to prevent different types of cancer is getting fruits and vegetables. Whole grains as well. Whole grains are important as well for cancer prevention. But I think we're often so absorbed with our waistlines,
yeah,
right? Like we just want to be thin. We just want to be as thin as we were when we were 30 or whatever it is. Well, guess what? It's not only about that. That is sure you want to be at a healthy weight, and obviously you want to talk to your doctor and or dietitian about what is a healthy weight for you. Many of us, including myself, we are having kids later in life. We want to be healthy in our 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond.
yeah,
So it's not just about, hey, what do I weigh?
yeah.
It's about what is my energy level like? Am I pre-diabetic? And am I cancer free? For me, these are all things that I consider, not just can I fit into the running shorts that I was able to fit into at 40.
I find it so interesting too when we have the Ozempic craze that's happening right now, and also I don't know if it's the same, like is it GLP-1? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I honestly have only heard about recently, so I don't know. Is that the same thing as Ozempic, or is that completely different? Do you
No,
know?
it is the same thing, but there's
Okay.
also naturally occurring GLP-1 in the body. And when we have foods with protein and fiber, we can increase the naturally occurring GLP-1 in
Oh,
our body. So that's another reason to put more of an emphasis on both protein and fiber. But yeah, I mean, the surge in these medications is it's huge. We cannot ignore this anymore. And the effect that it's having on people is pretty extreme. Also they're pretty new, so we don't and you're not supposed to be on them for more than a year.
so
So we
it's
don't really know what the long term is.
yeah, and it's interesting because I've heard I know a couple of people that had started taking Ozempic, and they said that their doctors told them that they need to be on it for the rest of their life. So they said that they'll be on it for a period of time at a certain dosage, and then
Mm.
after that, then they drop it, but then they can't ever go off of it. Otherwise, apparently, there's a big rebound of Ozempic post Ozempic weight gain. So I don't know. Again, like you're saying, it's like it's so new, right? Like we don't really know much about it.
Yes. And honestly, look, if you need to be on it for medical reasons, absolutely. It's so helpful for so many people. But it really does take away your desire for food. So for me, as a cookbook author, as someone who loves food and loves the joy of food, and I like being hungry, and knowing that in my body I'm actually physically hungry. To lose that feeling, I think would be really strange for me personally.
Yeah.
And also what it does is it makes people have to pack in a whole lot of nutrients into a very small amount of food, which is why you now have fast casual restaurants and, you know, everybody scrambling to create things for the GLP-1 population.
It's crazy how it's taken on its own kind of legs, you know? So again, it's
Right.
just one of those things where it's like, I feel like turning to someone like you who's an expert. Again, I agree with you. Like if you have to be on it, then, but there's always that difference between want and need, right?
Oh,
And
we know that there are thousands of people out there microdosing it, taking it just to lose weight.
it sounds like you're saying that there's some natural ways to do it. So increasing fiber, I didn't even know that.
Look, everybody always wants the silver bullet, right? The easy way, the just give me the medication or just give me the shot way of doing things. And I just always think that there's something down the road that is going to bite us in the ass
Yeah.
when we try to go the easy route. But I also believe in science,
Yeah.
and so I think it's great that we have new ways to tackle health issues. And obviously, we have millions of people who are pre-diabetic and diabetic. And hey, it actually happens to be National Diabetes Month, at least here in the US. I don't know about in Canada if you guys have that.
We tend to share like a lot of things like that, the national days, whenever, except for Thanksgiving.
Dietitians have always talked about balance and moderation, and no one has ever wanted to hear that because it sounds so boring and unsexy. But really, for that long-term health, you have to find the balance,
Hmm.
just like you can't be a person who's going to work themselves into the ground. You will burn out. You have to find, well, what feels good. Last night I did. I had a piece of pumpkin pie and half of an apple and wanted to get on my Peloton this morning and would have if the cord hadn't been broken. You can be an almost 52-year-old woman and have your slice of pie at night and still be healthy as long as you are then doing the other things like getting exercise the next day, finding some time to, do something that helps to lower your stress, like go on a walk with your dog or your daughter, or, do some mindful breathing techniques. These are all things that we're really understanding do make an impact, are really important. Um, you know, think about meal prepping, right? I can't meal prep every week or every day, but yesterday I did happen to have a window where I made some turkey chili. I roasted some root vegetables that I had bought already cut up. So that's really helpful.
Hmm.
If you're trying to eat healthier, buy it in a form where you will actually make it. If you're like, you know what, I'm just never going to peel those carrots,
Yeah. Or beets. Beets are like, everyone's like, I don't want to touch the beets, but they're
Yeah,
good for you
beets.
too.
I know that people say, well, food costs are so high, which they are. That's 100% true. But then spend your money where it makes a difference. Don't spend top dollar on processed foods. Spend a little more for those veggies that you will actually make and eat.
I don't know about you, but I find that we were going through a period where we had so much food waste. And maybe some, like, my husband's a lawyer and he's got long hours and I'm a hair and makeup artist, and because I freelance, it's like some days I don't work, or some days I'm working 12 to, 16 hours. And so you buy food with intention of making it, and then suddenly it's past the due date. So I do find, like you're saying, like some of those like pre-chopped vegetables, you can buy smaller containers, and then you just kind of like, you're going to be quicker to grab them because they're already prepared, right? I think
Yeah,
that's a great
absolutely.
idea for sure.
Absolutely. It's so worth it. I was just explaining to my son last week, who's 14, I made chicken tenders, but not breaded chicken tenders, just, chicken breasts cut
Yeah.
into the tender shape, and I put a little herb de Provence on top and pan sauteed them, and he was like, "Mom, this is so good." And I said, "Yeah, I don't always buy it because it is more expensive than chicken breasts because they've already done the work for you of cutting it into strips." He's like, "Oh, but they're so good." And I was like, "Well, you know what? If you're going to love it and eat it, then I will be happy to spend, the extra $1.50 or $2 to buy these versus chicken breast, so I
Yeah.
think you have to look at your budget and look at who are you feeding. Obviously, if it's just you, you're going to make different decisions than if you're feeding a
Oh, when it
family.
was just me, I would eat a bag of popcorn.
And yeah, and that's a girl dinner, right? That is an example of a girl dinner, but probably not a very balanced girl dinner
No.
because you were not getting any protein.
Yeah, but some red wine, so the antioxidants, right?
That's right. That's right. But you asked about what are some things that I would recommend at midlife. So back to the booze. You do not have to get rid of it entirely, but I do think that that is the time where if you're going to make a change about habits surrounding alcohol, 40, late 30s, it is a time to take a look at that because um, it really doesn't do us any favors. And yes, there are antioxidants in red wine and white wine as well, but the benefits that you might get, I think, are overshadowed by all of the detrimental things that happen when we drink alcohol,
Right.
especially if it is habitual. And I'm not talking about being an alcoholic. I'm just talking about like daily use.
Right.
And I know for me during the pandemic, I definitely drank a lot more. I mean, most people did.
I did for
And I
sure.
mean, I
Yeah.
would go into a panic when we were getting low on wine and I was like, "Ooh, we better stock up." And then what I found was that, when I started IVF, I think I was 48 when I started, I stopped drinking and I thought I did it not with the intention to stop for good. I did it with the intention of, oh, well, after I have the baby, I will have, wine again and beer and those types of things, just not as much as I was having during
Yeah.
COVID. But I have not, I stopped drinking. Like stopping then stopped me for good because I feel so much better.
Yeah.
I feel so much better that it is not worth it to me to start again.
I find too that as I've gotten older, like I'm 54, I've got an autoimmune disorder, and I like red wine, but I do find even if I get half a glass, my joints just start
Mm-hmm.
like throbbing like right away. So tell me about the IVF, which I think is amazing. And I know some women that have gone through IVF, but at a younger stage in life. It's great that you're happy to talk about it and share that experience.
I really didn't know that using a donor egg was a possibility for me. I knew that it was a thing that people did, but I didn't realize that could sort of open up new possibilities for me, and for my husband and for our family. And it really took reading this New Yorker article where a couple who had found each other later in life and got married at 50 and then went through the process. It really took that to understand that this was something that maybe I could do as well. And it really was pissing me off that people like Robert De Niro and Al Pacino were having babies in their 80s. And, lots of men in their 70s have babies, maybe with second or third wives, and nobody blinks. Nobody
Yeah.
says anything. But if a woman who is, even late 40s decides that they want to have a baby, people start to ask questions like, well, aren't you worried that maybe you're not going to be around?
Yeah.
And also it's so unfair. It's like we fight and we scrape to make a career. And then by the time we're established in any way, then we have to fight and scrape to have a child if that's
Hmm.
what we want.
The double standards are just unreal.
Yeah. Hugely unreal. And I was really kind of letting that get me down because I knew I had 3 kids and thankfully, knock wood, no issues. I had one at 40 and
Right.
I thought that maybe at 41 or 42, I'd be able to have a 4th, but that was not the case. And really your egg quality, it starts to go down at 35, but it plummets.
Yeah.
It plummets after 40. You might be lucky like I was and have a baby at 40 and have them be totally healthy and not have any issues. That might also happen at 45, but that is pretty rare. And so when I discovered that I could sort of extend my fertility by using a donor egg, that became something I was really interested in, and I pursued it. And I was very, very blessed to welcome Romy almost a year ago. And I am really excited that this is an option. I actually spoke to somebody last week who's doing this and she, wanted the lowdown because very few people are still, wanting to talk about making that decision. But it is for many people, it's the right decision. It's
Yeah.
not for everybody, but I think it's a way to, especially, some women much younger than I am, they do IVF for years and it doesn't yield them any results.
And it's such a personal thing too, right? And it's even like women that also choose not to have children, it's no kind of nobody's business unless you choose to share that,
Right.
for sure.
Look, we are trying to make things equal, but I feel like every year some vital freedom that we have gets rolled back or they're trying to roll it back.
Yeah.
So, I think the more that we can talk about um, things that actually make us feel more equal and basically owning our decisions, owning our life choices, I think we have to keep doing that because if not, somebody might come and take them away.
I don't know how old you were when you started kind of branching off and doing your own thing.
38.
But I've talked to so many women that are like 45 and up that are leaving their corporate job,
Oh,
leaving their, whatever job and just starting a new clothing line or hair company or whatever. So do you have any advice for women? Hey Francis, sorry, my internet just died. And
that's okay.
so I'm hotspotting from my phone. Thank God I have that capability.
Oh,
So I'm so sorry about that. They're doing
that's
construction
okay.
still in the basement. I wonder if somebody unplugged something and then I'm
Oh,
like,
maybe.
hello.
Oh boy,
Uh,
where were we?
yeah, where were
Oh,
we?
women's rights.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, think we could probably unpack so much there. There's just so much going on in the world. Oh yeah, I was also asking. So I know a lot of women that are kind of on the fence about breaking off to kind of start their own thing, and some
Oh
people
yeah.
think that they're, when they in their 50s, they think, oh, I'm too old to do that, which of course is definitely not true. But I understand the hesitation for a lot of people.
Look, whether it is starting a career, going back to school, um, you know, deciding you want to have a child later in life, making some big change, of course, there's going to be fear. I had a ton of fear about making the decision, going through the process, and then even just telling family members. I was worried about being judged. So, there are lots of different reasons. There's, financial reasons. If you want to, leave your full-time job to go start a cool boutique or whatever it is that you want to do, go back to school for journalism. I just feel like you have to, you have to, you have to kind of go a little bit blindly, a little bit like, cup half full
Mhm.
and feel like, hey, I'm only 50
Yeah.
instead of I'm already 50. I'm only 50. I might live to 94. That's
Yeah.
a whole lot more life ahead of me. And also, I feel like as a mother, I am showing my kids a good example of going for what I want.
Yeah.
So whether that was when I left the full-time magazine job at 38, even though people had told me for years that is a dream job, women would kill to have your job. I heard that a lot.
Yeah.
So there was the fear of leaving the security of that full-time job and also what it meant because it kept me in the media. And let me tell you, when you leave a magazine job, you don't necessarily automatically transfer that level of exposure
Hmm.
to, being just Frances Largeman-Roth. You have to work for that.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be fear with change, but change can bring so many beautiful, amazing things with it. And I feel like, there's so many ways that we've been restricted for so long, whether that was financially. I mean, can you believe women couldn't even get a credit card until 1974?
Oh,
That was the year I was
yeah.
born. My mother had to get my father's approval to get a driver's license. I mean,
Yeah.
all of these to get to be on birth control. My dad had to know about. I mean, just ridiculous things. You
Yeah.
have to jump because society is not set up to like spoon feed us. Like,
Yeah.
oh no, these things are scary, but with great risk can come great reward.
Did you come across any issues when you were setting up your business or
Yeah. Look, it's hard to get credit as a small business owner. Luckily, the business that I started, I didn't need a tremendous amount of, startup costs. But yeah, you do need some money to create a website, to create a logo. Um, I have never had anybody working for me full time, but if you are going to hire somebody full time, that's costly as well. So, definitely find some really sound financial advice because also people don't know, should I start an S Corp or an LLC? So for me, the right answer was LLC, but there are tax issues involved. So definitely talk to an accountant about that. But yeah, I definitely heard from folks, hey, are you sure you want to leave that full-time job
Yeah,
that
yeah.
gets you on the Today Show and gives you benefits? Like, it was really hard to make that choice, but I knew that for me, it was the right thing to do. And then, yes, the magazine industry has basically crumbled since I left.
Well, it's interesting too. Like I've like Laura Brown from InStyle, right? Like she was fired from her job, and they have that book out now. All the cool girls get fired, and that seemed to be also around the time when the magazine world started like crumbling, and there's also a bit of that like aging out of the industry, which is also ridiculous. Like
Oh, yeah.
that's happened to me some like a bit with my industry as well. And I think people know from the years of experience that I've had, like roughly how old I am, but I'm also not shy. Like I tell people how old I am. I mean, it shouldn't stop you from getting work. And I feel like the more of us that talk about our age and our experience and just where we are in life is going to show people that we're not aging out. We still have, like you said earlier, many, many years to go and opportunities. And so many people even kind of pivot and do other things, like you can pivot more than once in a lifetime, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I have stories of when I was at Health, there were a couple of hot, high profile editors in chief who were getting fired at the time. And I remember our editor in chief said, "Oh my God, I'm running to the salon because I got to cover these grays or else I might get, look, we have so much pressure on us still look a certain way. Look, I finally started wearing these during interviews because I need to see, right?
Yeah.
But you can tell that I'm a certain age because I'm wearing reading glasses.
I just had refractive lens exchange. So otherwise I'd have my glasses on.
What is that?
Oh, so basically they blast away your natural lens. And then they do the corrective surgery and then they put on an artificial lens.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so do you have 20/20 vision now?
I have to, I'm still in the healing process. And so when I left, they had tested it as being 20/25 vision, but, I have to see an optometrist, I think next week. I think next week's supposed to be
Wow.
like this should be your vision for the rest of your life. I wanted to get LASIK. And then in Singapore, I was told because of my autoimmune disorder that if I had LASIK, I had a risk of going blind. And
Oh
then
my
when I moved back
gosh.
to Canada, I saw
Wow.
somebody and they were like, that's not true. But then he said, because I have like a light eye color, he said
Hmm.
everyone with my eye color at some point in life would get cataract. So he said he wouldn't do LASIK now. He would recommend
Oh,
the refractive lens exchange, uh, because I would probably have to do that further on in life anyway. So that's what I did.
wow.
So
Wow.
yeah. I feel like it's
Well,
weird. I
that's
mean,
cool.
obviously I've got like some wrinkles and lines and whatever because I am 54, but I feel like my eyes feel more open now and maybe because they're not so tired like trying to focus on things and I was on the job the other day and I said something about how I just had my eyes done and I think they thought I meant aesthetic surgery because she was like, "Oh, wow, they look so great." I was like, "Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let that go."
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh my gosh.
uh um When you were in media, did you come across any damaging or frustrating myth about women's health in their 40s and 50s? Like just like
Oh,
the perpetuated
yeah.
myths?
Once you're past 40, you can't eat carbs. That's just complete BS. Absolute BS. I mean, this is a macronutrient that we need to survive. And sure, maybe you can't eat refined carbohydrates all day long, things like donuts and cookies and cakes and that sort of things. Though those have a place and you could still have them once in
Yeah.
a while. But you need carbohydrates to fuel your muscles to do any kind of fitness. You need carbohydrates. And also it's the number one fuel for your brain.
Oh,
So that's a huge myth.
okay. That's good to know. Do you believe in a cheat day? You know, a lot of people that they allow themselves like a cheat day. So one day a week they'll have their burgers and fries or whatever it shall be.
I hate the concept of a cheat day.
Okay.
Hate it. Hate it. Um, and I hate that so many celebrities perpetuate that this is my cheat day and these are my cheat day foods. Why can't it be that every day allows lots of different types of food? For example, why can't you start the day with overnight oats, have a salad for lunch, have salmon for dinner, and a slice of whatever for dessert that night, and then the next day, couldn't you have a burger on a Tuesday? Like, why does it have to be a cheat day? And I also think I think it sets us up for this all or nothing
Right.
mentality. Like, I'm good, 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 then I'm bad. But don't judge me because it's cheat day.
Right. Yeah.
So I would rather promote the concept, and this is what I do in Everyday Snack Tray. Every food fits. On a snack tray, if you wanted, you could have both Cheetos and carrots on the same snack tray. It's also not good for if you've got teenagers in the house who are susceptible to disordered eating or getting, certain concepts in their head about what is right and what is wrong. Having mom be on like her cheat day, that whole thing does not really work for establishing a healthy relationship with food.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And I haven't actually read the book yet. I bought it, but it's the Body Myth by Dr. Is that Margie? I can't remember. Anyway, she talks about disordered eating when you're also in midlife, that it's
Mm,
become like a big thing as
yes,
well. And this
very
is where it's been
common.
hard for me too. So I'm so glad that you reached out as well, because again, I've had women that have messaged me saying, "Oh, can you have someone on talk about diet and metabolism?" And I didn't want to just have anybody on. I've had a couple nutritionists reach out to me, and I can't even say whether they would be a good ad or not, but just the fact that you're a dietitian nutritionist, that I was like, this is a great fit because you have the knowledge, the background,
Thank you.
and the science. So but it is like a lot of women talk about too, like the midsection and metabolism. And is that just something that naturally kind of like slows down as because it's also funny too, because you hear some doctors say that that's not true, that's a myth, but every woman, and I shouldn't say every woman, that's too broad brushing, but so many women in their midlife, that's one of the things that they complain about. So there must be some truth to it, is it not? Or is it just we need to change our, sorry, I feel like I'm on a monologue, but
It's a lot of different factors, and unfortunately for most people, it all sort of happens at the same time, right? So hormone levels absolutely drop, estrogen, testosterone, and that's why a lot of women experience hair loss around midlife as well. But there's also stress. Stress is a component for that, as well as for gaining weight around your midsection, right? So if you still have kids in high school who are stressing you out and you're taking care of an aging parent, guess what? That affects your metabolism too. And also, you might be busy, but not necessarily active, right? So a lot of clients come to me and they're like, but I'm busy all day long. Well, moving around your office and running out to the store to get groceries might make you busy, but it's not actually using your muscles in the way that they need to be used. So definitely strength training needs to be happening. I mean, if you're not already doing it, let's start today. Even if you don't have any weights, grab something heavy and just do some biceps with it, because not only is it so important for retaining your lean muscle, which burns more calories, but also for keeping your bones strong.
yeah,
So they're really like, it's not really a one size fits all for every woman who's going through perimenopause and menopause. Um, but all these things happen, so like reduction in you're not, well, I am, because I've got a 1-year old, so I'm lifting her up, but you're not physical with your children in the same way that maybe you were at 35,
I could try and lift
right?
up my 17-year-old, but she's pretty tall.
Yeah, yeah. So, some people for years and years, they're not doing official exercise, but they're going to the playground. They're pushing the kid on the swing. They're walking a lot more. And then you get to a point where you're not doing that anymore. You know, maybe if you get a dog, you're going out for regular walks and things like that. So part of it is a reduction in that everyday exercise, also change in hormones,
Mhm.
maybe change in eating habits, maybe drinking more for some people. So you have to really look at the individual basis. And, now they're coming back to hormone replacement therapy as something that is safe to do. I have not used it. Maybe that's in my future too. Um, but I think that little tweaks can help a lot.
Yeah,
So boosting that fiber to 35 grams a day. And I'm not saying, definitely not saying you have to have 100 grams of protein a day, but how about protein at every meal and every snack? Your body can only absorb 30 grams at once anyway. So look, I'm not the person who's trying to get you to have protein shakes all day long, but maybe you need to add one if you're not getting enough in the rest of your day.
right. Yeah. Um, I feel like I can pull up my questions that somebody had asked about Ensure. Other question was, what's the verdict on Ensure?
So Ensure is really for people who need to be getting in more calories, right? So an elderly person who is not eating, or someone with an eating disorder who they're choosing not to eat, but they need nutrients. To me, that is not, Ensure is not something that a healthy person who is eating regular meals needs.
Okay.
But if you want, like I was talking about, protein shakes, so getting a protein powder and incorporating that into your smoothies, that is a great way to boost your protein intake if you know you're not getting it from the rest of your diet.
Right.
But I don't
And
think Ensure is something that most people need.
okay. And then with protein, there's so many brands of protein out there. So are there any ones that you particularly recommend or what people should look for on the label?
Well, again, remember how I talked about NSF as something that you want to look for on the label, the third party certification? Same thing with a protein powder. It is a supplement, right? And we know that protein powders, they've found lead, they've high levels of lead, they found lots of bad things in them. So you want to get one that is third party certified. Now, in terms of what type, whey protein is the gold standard in
Okay.
terms of actually helping you gain muscle mass. But if you are vegan or if you don't do dairy, then the whey is out. Then your choices, soy is a very high quality plant protein, but you can also do a combination of, you don't have to combine it. There are lots of products that combine pea protein with rice bran powder to create a complete vegetarian, vegan protein. So
Right.
I recommend, and I actually just had the same conversation with my sister the other day. She's same thing. Which one? What's good?
Yeah.
I said, look, if you can go to a store like Whole Foods that sells them by a packet versus the tub, do that. That way you can check it out. Do you hate the taste? Well, you don't want to end up with a $65 tub of it
It's
if
true.
you hate the taste. So, find one that you like. Maybe it's chocolate, maybe it's vanilla, maybe it's some other flavor that you prefer. Not only smoothies, but you can stir it into yogurt. So there are different ways to add these, but it's really about like, are you going to use it? If not, you're just going to be paying for something that's going to sit on your shelf.
Can you heat up protein powders? Like if you wanted to mix it in with like, I don't know, banana bread or something, or once
Yes.
you, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. I make banana bread. Um, it's funny. I was just thinking when you were talking about like talking to your sister and Whole Foods. I wonder if you get friends and family that are messaging you when they're like, I'm standing in Whole Foods right now, and because I get that from friends and family with Sephora and Ulta.
Sure. Yeah. I bet you do. Yeah. So many products.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely as experts, we have opinions, right? For sure.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. This is also a good one. Any standout fads we should ignore versus trends to adapt to our self-care routines? For example, collagen, etc.
I am personally a big believer in collagen. I do take it daily. I add it to my coffee, but again, you could stir it into yogurt or something like that. I feel like I'm a runner and I feel like it has been helpful with my joints, also with skin too. Um, but there are lots of foods like almonds and avocado. They're also beneficial for your skin. And we know that it actually helps to protect, not only moisturize from the inside, but also to protect from UV rays. So yes. Okay. So something to ignore. I did see something, ads yesterday as I was reading an article about Seth Meyers, um, about this liver detox supplement
Right.
that is trending right now. And it looked good. Like the ads looked very light and bright and wellnessy. You do not need a liver detox. Your liver, its whole purpose is to remove toxins from the body. And as long as you are a functioning, healthy person who is eating and staying hydrated and all that stuff, you do not need something to be pulling toxins out of your body. And if you are going through something like, detoxing from, drugs or alcohol, that is something that you should be in a special, facility getting special treatment for. You do not need to detox your liver.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
And a lot of people tell you you do. So
Yeah.
if they tell you you do, then that's a red flag that they are not a real health professional.
Okay. This is the last question that I had on my Instagram. Does it matter when you eat? Like, is it more prone to store fat if you eat before bed?
Okay, so this is a myth that has been around forever, 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 forever. It is not the time. The time is not what, might make you gain weight. It is what you are eating. Okay. So we tend to want to eat the pints of ice cream at night, the bags of chips at night. And yes, doing that as a habit will make you gain weight. It is not that you're eating it at 10 o'clock at night or 11 or whatever the case might be. And guess what, folks? It's still the calories that we eat. That's still important, right? Having that balance of like energy expenditure versus energy, versus taking in energy. So if you are hungry, I always tell people don't go to bed hungry. Even if you are trying to lose weight, it would be much better to have a handful of cashews and an orange at 10 o'clock if you're hungry than to either skip it
Yeah.
or, eat something super refined that doesn't even satisfy you. So to answer the question, no, it's not about the time. It's about what you're eating.
That's great, because I feel like so many people are like, I'm not eating past 7 p.m. And yeah, if you're eating a pint of ice cream at 10 p.m.
That's just a
versus a
diet. It's
banana.
just a diet. It is a way to cut calories,
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. We had guests that were over, gosh, I guess months ago, but one of their daughters who was in her 20s, I had offered her, I think I'd baked some scones and I offered her one. And I thought it was interesting because she came back with, thank you, but no, I'm choosing to be kind to my body today. And
What did
I
you
had
say?
never heard anybody refer to it like anything like that. And I was like, huh. Like, I'm still kind of on the fence about how I feel about that statement.
I had a similar experience where we had an cute little ice cream truck for my daughter's birthday. And one of the moms I said, oh, are you going to get in line to get some ice cream? She said, no, I'm being good. I'm being good. And I said, well, then you should get in line because this is really good ice cream. To me, that was setting the wrong example for these young girls. And it could be, oh, I'm not hungry. Like that's a reasonable explanation, but not I'm being good. Curious whether this person who refused the scone, maybe it causes her digestive discomfort. And maybe that's what she meant by I'm being kind to my body today. Who knows? Who knows? And look, maybe you don't want to say yes to a baked good every day. You don't have to, but I do think that people are overly restrictive with their food choices, and that can lead to its own whole host of issues. There have been so many fad diets and fad things like that, that people have lived through. And I just really hope that we can start to move away from that and move to a place of balance and waking up and saying, okay, you know what? Maybe today isn't a Peloton day or a weights day. Maybe it's a go on a walk because it's beautiful out and we're going to be in winter soon. So maybe I'm going to, grab my husband and go for a 30-minute walk with him. Maybe that's a better way for me to, move my body today. And in terms of food, I really would love for more people to think about what can I add? What are some exciting nutrient-rich foods I can add to my diet versus what am I going to take away?
Yeah.
What pleasure am I going to remove today?
Well, I know you talk about too, just having like multiple colors on your plate as well, which
Yes.
I guess looking at what color should you be adding into that. Although if it's Smarties, does that mean you're covering all your colors?
Sadly, no, but you could still have them, incorporate them on a snack tray,
Yeah.
you know, have some balanced foods on there as well. But yeah, I think that people really tear themselves up over food choices. And I hate to see that. Really hate to see that because I want people to enjoy food and yes, like feel what it feels like to truly nourish your body.
Frances, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
This has been a pleasure and FU 50s because we still have so much to do, so much to share, so much to live for, and, ways that we can just brighten up the world. So thank you so much for having me on, Andrea.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fuck You 50s. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow and rate the podcast. And we would love to connect with you on Instagram. So be sure to follow us at the Fuck You 50s. The Fuck You 50s is hosted by Andrea Claire. See you next time.